All right, hi class. Welcome to Notebook 12. Sorry, it's okay. It'll work. Welcome to Notebook 12. I'm unclear if this is part of Unit 4 or 5. It seems a little bit ambiguous. Maybe they changed it, so I figure we'll do it now. There's not that many notes for conditioning, so we might as well do this as well, okay? So again, I'm not sure if this is 4 or 5. It's kind of like, it's one of them. It's one of them. So learning motivation and coping. So observational learning, okay? Um, Watson and Skinner, they believe that behaviors were learned through reward and punishment. Remember, they had a little pushback, not a little, I mean, people believe that it's not just your being trained to do something, that you don't learn just through behavior. Behavior learning has to do with your cognitive ability, your genes, right? Things like that, the environment that you're in. It has to do with all those things. So Bandura pioneered what would become known as observational learning. And this is learning by observing others. So think about like social learning. And he is regarded as the transition from behaviorism to cognitive psychology, right? So remember, psychology is a science and it's something that's been developing, um, that it continues to develop because, right, another theme of the course is we don't know anything. So now what we're looking at is, well, maybe we don't just train folks to do things. Maybe folks are learning through viewing things. And I am familiar with this because this is something we talk about in educational psychology. So Bandura and other psychologists noted that several observation-based phenomenon, modeling, was perhaps the first of the discoveries. And modeling is something I'm very familiar with, again, through educational psychology. Whenever a teacher, so for example, this is psych. I don't know if I've done it with you, but if you were in my English class, and I ask you to create a PowerPoint presentation and I show you a sample and I go through how I did it, that's modeling. Often when I read something, I stop, I ask myself questions, that's modeling. I don't know if I've modeled an FRQ for you, but it's the idea of it's a process where you're observing and imitating a certain behavior. Bandura noted that when children observed adults hitting a clown, remember, we know this one, a toy clown, when they were angry, children soon learned to do that when this, sorry, soon learned to do the same when they were frustrated and angry. Children who had not observed adults, children who had not observed adults did not take out their frustration on the clown, thus smiling. The reason why I'm stumbling over my words a little bit is this is all just the Bobo experiment. We know Bobo the clown. We know the kids went in there, they watched someone else beat the clown. Some of the kids were taking hammers to him, right? So we're all familiar with that experiment. That's a very negative look at modeling, but again, the kids watch some adults. The kids that watched adults be harmful to Bobo the doll were harmful to Bobo the doll. Children that did not see adults do that were less inclined to attack Bobo the doll. So this was a fairly significant discovery that flew in the face of behaviorists. It's observational learning is purely internal. One does not need to experience the consequence in order to learn observationally. Meaning, let's say you're in a class and someone cheats. So you see that they cheated. Then you see that that person received a 0, got in trouble, etc. You didn't necessarily have to cheat on your own and get in trouble, but if you see someone experience that consequence, it's going to deter you from exhibiting that behavior. So they have that kind of silly show, whatever, I'll bring it up. I think it's called Scared Straight, where they bring kids to a jail, incarceration facility. I'm trying to think of the proper word for that. And the idea is that you see this where folks have done something wrong and now they're paying their debt to society and they're living a life that's not desirable. That's also a form of modeling. So just another example. All right, we're going to move on here. So getting the message. All right, so additionally, not long after Bandura's discovery, Italian neuroscientists discovered what are believed to be mirror neurons. That's your frontal lobe neurons that some scientists believe fire when performing imitation acts or when observing others. So this is actually really interesting. So the example that they give us, that monkeys observing people eat ice cream activate their reward centers as if they were eating the ice cream. So mirror neurons enable both imitation and empathy. and have likely increased evolutionary success among social creatures. So it's the idea of mirror neurons is really empathy. It's you seeing someone and feeling what they're feeling. So often, if you go to an award ceremony and you see your friends winning awards, unless you have some serious, deep rooted jealousy issues, you're probably going to feel really good and feel happy because you are living almost vicariously through that person. You have that think of mirror neurons, right? Like you're looking into a mirror or someone else and you're feeling what they are feeling. Um, just like if you saw someone struggling, you might become very sad. I watch the news. I mean, this is so evident right now. I find myself just in tears, all these horrible stories, or you look on Facebook and reach out to friends and you're hearing the hardships they're going through and you feel terrible. It's that mirror neuron, it's empathy, but in a psychological sense, that's what's going on. So cognitive psychologists also discovered or labeled semantic memory. And the word semantic has to do with word choice, vocabulary. So, um, semantic memory is a portion of the long-term memory that processes ideas and concepts that are drawn from your own personal experience. I'm sorry, not drawn from your own personal experience. They're drawn through language. So semantic memories may be like a story you heard, right? So something that you heard orally that you've heard of and now you remember that. It could be a book you read. Um, Again, it could be a conversation you had. So it's not necessarily a personal experience, but it's from language. So let me give you a better example. I hope this is accurate. My father is a character, and he has stories he tells all the time about different things that he's experienced. I'll tell you a quick one. Um, I don't know if you've ever seen A Bronx Tale. You should if you haven't. It's fantastic. But anyways, A Bronx Tale was filmed in my neighborhood here in Astoria. And my dad, the director of the movie is Robert De Niro. And my dad was a huge Robert De Niro fan. So he was a firefighter. So he had certain days on and off. So the days that he had off, he would come and pick me up from school. And as he was waiting for me, he would look and try to see Robert De Niro, and he never saw him. It was weeks of this. And finally, one day, he's waiting for me to come out of school, and he catches a glimpse of Robert De Niro. He's in his absolute glory. He's watching. He's looking. He's so happy to see him at work. It's his hero in life. And a man comes up to him and says, "Excuse me, sir." My dad goes, "What?" "Sir, you're going to have to move." Like, my dad looks around and goes, "What? You're talking to me? What do you mean?" "Yes, Mr. De Niro asked that you stop staring at him and you need to move." Now, why am I telling you that story? Because it's funny and because it's part of my memory. It didn't happen to me. I wasn't there. I was 5 years old in kindergarten waiting to come out of the building. But that the language used, that story is part of me now. I tell that story to other people. So even though I didn't experience it, through storytelling, through language, it's part of who I am. And it might be part of you now because it's a great story. All right, we're going to continue on here. I'm on the right slide, yes. So observational learning is one of the most effective ways to teach, especially children, most notably through modeling beneficial behaviors rather than adverse behaviors. So the layman terms of that is you want to exhibit behaviors you want your kid to mimic. You want to do things you want them to do. So parents should be actively demonstrating pro-social behavior. You want to be positive, you want to be constructive, you want to be helpful. So if you want your child to learn how to appropriately disagree with someone, they should do so in a calm, respectful manner and keep their tempers in check. So if you are having an argument with your spouse, you're not going to want to scream in their face or yell. The way that you go through that argument that your child is watching, they're going to then mimic, that's the best word I can come up with for this, that behavior. So the idea is that you're trying to show your kid the best way to be. So for example, you are not innate, it's not innate within you that when I hold a door, I'm sorry, it's not innate within you that when you see someone coming, you hold the door. Someone had to teach you that, right? If I give you something, it's not innate within you to go, thank you. Someone had to teach you that. So watching those kind of manners and those behaviors is something that's modeling, and it's pro-social behavior, right? Being a positive person. And then we're all human, so unintentionally, we very often demonstrate antisocial behavior. This may be physical or verbally aggressive and reclusive behavior. Children of such parents are more likely to be aggressive, violent, impulsive, have negative social consequences, maybe have fewer friends, less guidance from adults, less learning and economic opportunities. So if you see your parents screaming and fighting and using bad language at each other all the time, that's what you think people do. It's what you've seen. That's what you're going to do. That's what has been modeled for you. That's what you're likely to replicate. So, you try to be I try to be the best person I can, but people slip sometimes. But you do want to have it in the back of your mind to try to be as positive, constructive, and helpful as humanly possible, because you're modeling your behavior. So, whether it's pro-social or antisocial, there is no guarantee that the child will model their behavior, as behavior is determined by a set of contingencies. These are linked events that could happen but may not happen. This is because behavior is a nuanced blend of, you ready, class? Genetics, mostly genetics, and some environmental factors. So, if your family tends to be very aggressive, yeah, even if they're not that aggressive in front of you, there's still that genetic part of you, right? Genetics. It all boils down to genetics. Try to do the best thing for your kid, but they, at the end of the day, they are who they are. Okay, and I'm going to go through the last slide here because, like I said, I want to keep them short so they stay on YouTube, so I feel like I have things organized. All right, unrealized learning. So learning is observational, but it's unintentional and is somewhat mysterious. So insight learning is the sudden realization of a problem. Those are the moments when out of nowhere you have an idea of how to fix something. So the example, firefighters are stumped for 2 hours, how to rescue an injured robin. That's, I guess, a very calm town, not much going on there. From a tube too thin, blah, blah, blah. Suddenly, one of them figures out what to do. It's kind of like aha moment, if I could say that without stuttering. Where when you see a cartoon, when a little light bulb goes over someone's head, that's what insight learning is. You're trying, and finally you get it. It's a fancy word for something that's just an epiphany, basically. All right. Emotional learning. It's a form of social learning in which children and adults acquire uh, uh, and effectively apply the knowledge, attitude, and skills necessary to understand and manage emotions. It's a motion, set and achieve positive goals, feel and show empathy for others, and make responsible decisions. So, emotional learning, it's what it sounds like. How do I become a person that is calm? How do I deal with things? I hope we have went through strong emotional learning and have learned well, because right now, I mean, this is getting tried, right? Um, is how do you manage these things? How do you become successful? Okay, that's emotional learning. That's basically your like emotional IQ, if you could think of it that way, is how well are you able to balance out you. And then finally, there's latent learning, which we had some issues with when we first went through, but I hope it's clear now. It's the unconsciously processed information, learning that occurs, but is not apparent until there's an incentive to demonstrate it. So you may be exploring a new city, you don't know the town very well, but if asked, you are likely to accurately explain how to retrace your steps despite not knowing the town. So this is a terrible example. Can you recall all the people you had a conversation with today? Yeah, I sure can. Because it's three of them, all right? I had three conversations in person with people. But it's the idea that you're doing something that you're not conscious, that you're taking in that information, but you are learning it. Okay, I hope that was a good enough example. Again, I think this is Unit 4, but it might be Unit 5. It's kind of on the cusp there, all right? I hope this was helpful. And if you have any questions or concerns, let me know.